At the core of a DTC business model is the idea that you're putting the customer front and center and you're providing them a better experience, a better reason to buy from you versus the competition. We thought there were a lot of those reasons within the mattress space. And I think that's why the DTC model works so well within this category, is that it really was an order of magnitude better customer experience than what existed today. And there was a lot of value to be captured for the customer in doing it that way.
You are listening to Innovate or Die, the podcast for companies that refuse to stand still. Now, Robert, who is the innovator that we have on deck today?
It's a good one today, and definitely someone I've always wanted to talk to because I was amazed with one of the companies that he built in the brand and how quickly he did it. We've got Philip Krim. He is one of the co-founders of Casper, and unless you've been sleeping under a rock for the last 10 years and don't know what Casper is, it really was originally a DTC mattress company and brand, and just seems to be everywhere, always has. But what I love about Philip and why he is perfect for this podcast, he has really been innovating since he graduated. Well, probably even since he's been a little kid. We can get into that. But I know since he's graduated University of Texas, hook 'em horns, he's definitely been through it all and definitely innovating on all different levels. So excited to have Philip on board.
Welcome to the show, Philip.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I'm pumped.
So I think the best place to start is, Casper is the company that most people would be familiar with that are listening to this, to have some sort of association with your background. I would love to hear, going back to 2013, 2014, the origin story of Casper, where the idea came from, how the group of founders came together, and really just like kind of the beginning, early days of that company before it really took off.
Yeah, Casper was a twinkle in our eye back in 2013. I'm one of 5 co-founders. And we got together really summer of 2013 and started talking about the idea that ultimately became Casper. At the time, I would say the idea started because we started talking about direct-to-consumer as a business model. We saw and admired what the Warby Parker guys had built with Warby Parker. We saw what Andy Dunn had built and was building at Bonobos. We were able to meet and talk to Jeff Rader, who was building and getting ready to launch Raiders. And we love the idea of direct to consumer, the ability to build a brand directly with customers, speak to them, create a voice, and circumvent traditional kind of retail experiences made a ton of sense to us. And ultimately, we decided that doing that within the mattress category could be really interesting. I knew enough about how the mattress industry worked through a previous company to be dangerous, and knew that we could find dropship manufacturing, knew that we could circumvent the traditional terrible retail experiences that existed in the industry. And all of that gave us conviction that there was probably something there to do within the DTC business model for the mattress industry. And so we set out to go build Casper. At the time, we didn't have a name. At first, we thought we'd call it Dukes. We had some other names that we wanted to go with. Ultimately, we landed on Casper. We launched that business in April of 2014, and we're off to the races kind of from day one, really.
So one of the things that we can kind of gloss over now, looking backwards in the rearview mirror, is we kind of take for granted that we just assume every industry can be DTC'd, so to speak, or can shift from a storefront to a direct-to-consumer model. Because forever, the way that you buy a mattress is you go to a store, you lay on a bunch of them for like 30 seconds to decide which one feels the most comfortable, and that's the one you take home. And so just like with Uber, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to build this app where you're going to pay money to put your teenage daughter in a stranger's car repeatedly, and that's going to be better than the alternative, right? Like this complete paradigm shift of how you think about a particular industry or niche. What were some of the original feedback that you got from early investors once you started pitching this idea around? Did the idea shift at all? Did you pivot? Did you change it at all? Or was it pretty close to what you had originally envisioned for what ended up becoming the company as you got that early stage investment?
Well, most of the early feedback we got was around kind of how you were positioning it, that you're crazy. There's no way this works. you guys have no clue what you're doing. This doesn't make any sense. People need to lay on a mattress to try it. And that was certainly the common theme in what we heard across dozens and dozens of investor conversations. I would say what we were really focused on was solving problems. We thought that the traditional retail experience was terrible. We would joke at the time in New York, there were Sleepy's on every corner. Sleepy's eventually was bought by Mattress Firm, so now they're more Mattress Firm. But you felt like you had to go take a shower after stepping foot into a Sleepy's. It was a terrible experience. There was complete asymmetry of information. You have no idea what you're buying because it's such an episodic purchase. There's no kind of Kelly Blue Book about information around the mattress. And so the whole industry, we felt, was just convoluted and did a lot of things at the disservice of the customer. And I think at the core of a DTC business model is the idea that you're putting the customer front and center and you're providing them a better experience, a better reason to buy from you versus the competition. And we thought there were a lot of those reasons within the mattress space. The big question that we had, that investors had, was, would people buy a mattress sight unseen without laying on it? And, fortunately, enough people didn't want to go lay on a mattress. Enough people bought into the idea that laying on a mattress for 30 seconds wasn't a good way to know if it would sleep well. When we launched the business, we said, we'll give you at the time 40 days. Eventually, we upped that to 100 days of sleeping on the mattress and actually trying the mattress. And if you didn't love it, we would take it back, give you a full refund. And that was novel and innovative back then, because usually stores would try to get you to exchange at best. Even that was cumbersome and difficult. And so we said, the only way to know if a mattress is right for you is to sleep on it. We'll give you 100 nights to do that. Try it sight unseen. We'll ship it right to your door. You don't have to deal with a store, a commissioned salesperson, any of the negative things that were associated with buying a mattress. And I think that's why the DTC model works so well within this category, is that it really was a order of magnitude better customer experience than what existed today. And there was a lot of value to be captured for the customer in doing it that way. And I think that was some of the key ingredients that made Casper a successful business and DTC a successful business model within the industry.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I do live in New York City, and there was a Sleepy's on the corner, literally on my corner, for about 15 years. And now it's the new brand that, who was it that took it over?
Mattress Firm.
Yeah, we don't want to. Anyway, aside from that, though, I will tell you, it did feel like, like you were at a used cars dealership and coming out of that. And it is pretty amazing what you were able to do, with Casper. And especially, were you surprised just even initially at that response right off the bat?
Oh, shocked. I mean, we had plenty of self-doubt. When you're pitching the business, of course, you have total confidence and bravado that it's all going to work perfectly well. But we legitimately didn't know if anyone was going to show up, if anyone would buy the idea of buying a mattress sight unseen. We thought it would take tons of time to gain traction and get testimonials and reviews. And, fortunately, we underestimated demand. And, the other side of the problem is probably worse. Underestimating demand has its own set of challenges, and we had to deal with those. But we were blown away at the receptivity that people had around the business idea, the brand, in our early days. And for the first, however many, months, years in business, it was really just chasing to keep up with things, which was awesome. I had never been in a business like that before. It's something that, I think was a unique moment in time, because you could really lean into some advertising channels to help fan the fire. And we had great word of mouth, and D2C was novel. And it was just a great time to be building this type of business. You couldn't launch and scale Casper today the way we did in 2014. But it all surprised us. We were young entrepreneurs. We had never been at a company that had seen scale or success like Casper. And we just worked every day to try to keep up and try to do right by our customers and really put one foot in front of the other, because we had no clue what the playbook was going to look like.
Yeah, the playbook did not include COVID, I'm sure. How did you innovate around that and just even survive?
Well, it's I guess the quote by Mike Tyson comes to mind. Like, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And COVID was certainly one of those punches. We had a number of punches in the face throughout our existence, but COVID was one that took us by surprise. I think we had the unfortunate context of being a public company at that time, which also meant we had to deal with public shareholders for the first time. And so that changed how we operated. We're trying to change our playbook, because a lot of why we went public was to raise money to open up more offline distribution, build more stores, go into more retail partnership doors. And so we had to take a step back and think about what was important. How do we conserve cash and make sure that we were operating the business with the right level of aggressiveness and conservatism, given what was going on in the world. And it was a huge challenge, and we had to do that remotely, so couldn't get together and deal with it. And it was just a really unique, challenging time for the business. Every business and every business management team was dealing with this, so nothing unique there. But for me personally, first time running a public company, first time having public shareholders, first time having public earnings calls and doing press releases. So it was interesting, to say the least.
For sure. And, in the history of Casper and all the unforeseen events that you couldn't see coming, I'm sure Kylie Jenner posting about her Casper mattress was not up there as far as like your strategic marketing vision for 2015, I imagine, is when that happened. So when was the first time that you saw that post? And what was the response or the reaction inside of the company when you were like, okay, like our website's literally crashing. What's going on? Oh, one of the biggest influencers in the world is telling everybody they should get a Casper mattress.
Yeah, it's funny. There were two influential posts by folks that really caught us off guard and that were amazing. And the first one was actually Ashton Kutcher, who was an investor, but didn't tell us that he was going to post about us. And we were big data nerds with how we ran the business. So we had, every dashboard you could imagine, and we were watching traffic, and all of a sudden numbers started to spike. The site started to slow down. Eventually the site crashed. Like, we had no clue what was going on. And the first time that was Ashton Kutcher, we're like, oh, well, that was cool. And we had some other like influencer posts that had happened after Ashton that really didn't move the needle on like traffic or sales. And then we had Kylie. And when she posted, again, everything broke, everything went crazy. We had the total good luck of the fact that not only was she posting about Casper, but it turns out it was the first post ever of her new house. And so it had interior pictures of her home that no one had ever seen before. And so it got picked up by people, by us. Everyone went crazy for it. And lo and behold, because she posted about Casper, people bought Casper mattresses. So that was an awesome spike, one that we could never really recreate. We worked with a lot of celebrities and influencers at the time, but she certainly is in a league of her own. And that was awesome. And as they say, better to be lucky than good, because we had no clue that it was going to be the first ever post of our house. But I think that's a big reason why it went as viral as it did.
Yeah, when you can catch lightning in a bottle, that's always nice. I'm curious, once you saw the impact of those kind of influencer celebrity campaigns, there was something really unique about the Casper unboxing experience where, back 2014, 2015 is still relatively new. People hadn't seen mattresses rolled up, like air suction sealed and then inflating in front of them. How much of the unboxing or installation experience and the novelty of that did you lean into with those campaigns to grab people's attention as a hook for, whoa, what's going on? I've never seen a mattress do that before, to capture people's attention and kind of carry into kind of like the very early days of, micro influencer and influencer marketing on social media?
Yeah, Travis, I think it's another example of it's better to be lucky than good. Like, I wish I could tell you we sat around and said, like, how are we going to perfect the unboxing experience because people are going to share unboxing a mattress and put it on YouTube and film it, which wasn't a thing, to your point. Before that, we had no conversations around that. And fortunately, people did share it. I would say we were prepared on the branding side. We did say, what's the nice thing about a DTC business is that you control every touch point with your customer. And so let's be thoughtful and diligent about making sure that every touch point we control was as delightful, as special, as well designed as possible. So we were the first ones to really design the packaging and design the unboxing experience to be the way we wanted it to be. Now, we fully did that because we wanted to build that one-to-one relationship with our customer. And we were super lucky that the customers enjoyed it so much that they then went on and filmed it and shared it. And that became a big thing. And that was our number one source of business for a long time. So we love that they shared it. Again, I think that's part of the beautiful part about D2C is you have that relationship. Once we saw that that was a thing, we asked customers to share. We gave them reasons to do it. We included gifts in their packaging and we really leaned into it. But we were lucky that folks wanted to do that from the beginning. And that was a huge area of growth for us.
Philip, when you innovate, all of a sudden the copycats start coming in, right? How did you fend off or how did you maintain market share when companies like Purple and other companies started entering into, this space that you really created?
Yeah, it's a great question, Robert. And one of the areas where I definitely think, like looking back, where I made mistakes, and if I could do it over again, I would have made a different call. I recall at the time, we thought a lot about, what competition was doing and seeing how that would impact us. But my view and what I told the company was, as long as we focus on our game and improve what we're doing every day, that's going to take us to success. And we should really just ignore what a lot of the competition is doing. And I would say I got that call wrong. And in hindsight, I wish we would have thought about how to build more defensibility into our business model, our brand, our distribution earlier in our life cycle than we ultimately did with Casper. I totally underestimated the amount of competition that we would have, where that competition would come from. I mean, we literally had hundreds of copycats. We had copycats from the largest companies in the space all the way down. We had new companies enter. I mean, it was remarkable. I'd never seen anything like it. And I wish we had done more to really think about that and get ahead of that. At the end of the day, I still believe if you build a great product and you do right by your customers, that's the most important thing. But of course, there are things you can do to kind of ward off or stay ahead of competition. And I should have been more thoughtful about how to build more defensibility into the business.
I'm curious what that revisionist history narrative looks like in your mind, because there's always the, woulda, coulda, shoulda, looking back, hindsight's 2020. Like if you were to replay that season of your time at Casper, because I imagine the lessons you learned from that, you're applying forward to your current venture, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But what were some of those things that you either misfired on or didn't take into consideration or took for granted that going backwards, obviously, no, you can't replay the history, but if you could go back and do it again, what would be some of the key things that you would do differently?
Sure. I would say two areas. One, on the product side, I probably would have doubled down on doing more proprietary things with IP in our products and telling the story around why that IP was really interesting and valuable. A lot of what we did with Casper was taking stuff off the shelf, combining it in unique ways and doing some unique things, but not in a totally novel proprietary way. And so I probably would have done more to just build more of a narrative around why our physical product was different and had IP around doing that. I think Tempur-Pedic did a great job of doing that early days and stood out as more novel, and we could have. And then the other area, I would say, we underestimated how powerful the affiliate marketing channel would be within the mattress space, and approaching that whole category with a different strategy would have probably been something I would have done differently. Ultimately the affiliates kind of ended up creating a lot of the power dynamic within the online space. And I think that ended up hurting the consumer experience and created a lot of misinformation. And there were a lot of kind of unscrupulous pay to play folks. And I think if we could have shined a brighter light around how to do it right, how to operate more transparently with that universe, I think we could have probably helped elevate the consumer experience in a way that we didn't really think about doing that until that had reached kind of escape velocity.
Let's shift over now to Philip Krim and what he is doing today, because some fascinating things again on the front lines of innovation. And you are running a business called Montauk Climate. What was the genesis of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Casper was taken private in a sale to private equity in late 21. At the time, I was still, and probably am today, suffering from PTSD of running a company. So I had no aspirations of doing that, and was fortunate to kind of check every box I had wanted to check on running a company. But I love the 0 to 1 phase of company building. I love kind of finding an innovative idea, finding something novel and helping create it and bring it to the world. So I wanted to do more of that. And that kind of led me to just personally incubate some ideas that I'm excited about. So I started doing that. I started working with co-founders where upfront I said, I don't want to run any part of the business, but I want to be a co-founder. I want to be rolling up my sleeves in the trenches, figuring out the early ideas, figuring out how to get product market fit, figuring out the audience that we want to go after. But it'll be your company to run, and I'll take a back seat and just try to support the management team that would be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the business. So I did that a handful of times across a number of different businesses. One business in the insurance space, one consumer business called Yeasay in the shopping space, one in the climate space and energy space called Haven Energy. And ultimately with Haven Energy, I met a person who ended up being my co-founder with Montauk Climate, a gentleman named Evan Karen. And with Evan, he is encyclopedic with his knowledge around everything climate and energy related. He helped us really figure out a lot of the early things with Haven Energy that I think are making that business be successful today. We ended up, Evan and I, working on another business and co-founding a company called Electron X, which is in a great spot and has a team. And last summer, Evan and I decided to let's go all in on building companies within the climate space. Let's start a company, which is called Montauk Climate, put a team around us, get some resources, and really focus on building businesses that need to exist given the transitions that are happening within climate and energy and infrastructure. And that's what we do today. So we're a team of 7. Evan and I have a co-founder, Cheryl, who helps us run the incubator. And we're focused on creating ideas and then pairing those ideas with great talent to have the talent run the business, co-found it with us, but eventually spin out the business and then the business existing on its own, where we'll be active in helping the business be successful. We'll stay on the board. We'll stay as meaningful shareholders and partners and co-founders, but we're not running the actual business. We help stand it up. We help find great talent. We help find capital, and then the business is off to the races on its own.
What aspects of other successful incubators like Y Combinator are you taking? And then what new aspects are you adding, that's a little bit different than maybe others have done or are doing in the same space?
Yeah. So unlike Y Combinator, we come up with our own ideas before we marry them with talent. Y Combinator is looking to find people that have ideas and are working on them. But I think what Y Combinator does better than anyone is teach those founders about how to be successful early stage founders, how to build products, how to raise capital, how to talk to investors, how to pitch the business. And so we spend a lot of time working with our founders, and oftentimes our CEOs are first time CEOs. And we talk about the value that we have in helping pull forward the business vision, pull forward execution, because we've been there. We've done that. We've raised capital. We've launched companies. We have relationships with investors. And we want to bring that to bear to help pull forward and accelerate the companies that we end up working on. And we do that by the same thing that YC works with their founders on, talking about how to pitch the business, talking about how to talk about strategy and TAM and all the things that investors look for. Investors speak their own language. So sometimes just deciphering when an investor tells you this, what do they really mean? And what do we need to tweak, if anything, because of that? So that's, I think, the commonality. The difference is obviously we're fully focused on the climate and energy space. And what that means for us is that a lot of times we're trying to bring new talent into this area. This is not an area like fintech or healthcare tech where there's been great companies that have been built over the last, 10 plus years that have spun out great founders for a number of years. Climate needs more than anything great talent. And we want to help accelerate people coming into the climate fold. And we think we can do that by pairing new folks into the space with subject matter experts who know the space really well, and then working with them to build the companies that we think need to be built to help achieve the goals that we have.
I'm curious how you gauge the viability of new ideas, because like you said, you kind of orient your process a little bit different than other incubator or, venture capital type investments. when you're looking at ideas or the viability of ideas, do you measure them based on missional impact? Since the reason that you're doing this is not just because you want to make $1 billion more, but because it's tied to a core value that you hold and everyone involved in the organization? Or are you really looking for like unicorn potential, like this company, this idea could become a multi-billion-dollar valuation, and so that's why it's the best thing to do now? Like, how do you gauge and weigh those different priorities, recognizing the need for capital to increase the ability for these climate-oriented companies to make impact and make change, but how much of that do you weigh against, like, this is what we should do and we need to figure out a way to make it happen, even if it's harder than this other low-hanging fruit on the side?
It's a great question. And it's one where we asked ourselves the same question early days with Montauk Climate. And we said, let's define it and let's be really upfront about where we sit within this and be transparent and just kind of own where we want to be within the ecosystem. And I would say first, we defined our sandbox as we want to play in the asset light parts of the world. We do not want to take R&D risk. We do not want to back science experiments. We want to take things that are commercially relevant, commercially viable, something that we can be generating real, revenue behind within 12 months. We want to focus on asset light businesses. We want to focus on technology and software driven businesses. And so that's kind of how we've defined our sandbox. And we also said we are going to put top of our priority list as good businesses that have big outcomes. And we recognize that a lot of people are in the climate space because they are more mission oriented. And we love folks like that. And we love folks that are taking big long-term swings. And there are pools of capital out there to back those types of businesses. And they've built great firms that are doing exactly that. Where we saw a dearth of options and where we saw the need for something new is businesses that will have real impact, where we can measure that impact, but they also have real financial returns and they're going to generate those returns for our investors. And so we want to continue to raise money for our business. We think that's the way that we'll have the most impact on the world. And the way that we have permission to do that is by generating great financial returns for our investors. And so we've been very clear that that's a priority with what we do and has to be something day one that we have conviction around when we're backing an idea.
Within energy and now being involved within it for a bit, where do you see, let's just look at the next 3, 5, 10 years, where do you see the most innovation coming from within the industry?
Well, what I love about the climate space is that there are just so many areas that are going through big fundamental changes, and those changes require a lot of innovation. And so it is a wild west of kind of playgrounds where there's just so many things that need to be built, so many things that need to be solved. What we talk about with Montauk Climate is that climate is transitioning from a world where we were generating carbon to a world where we have lots of net zero commitments. With energy, we're transitioning from a world that was a centralized grid of unsustainable generation to a distributed grid of sustainable generation. These are trillion-dollar markets, multi-trillion-dollar markets that are going from an old way of doing things forever to a new way. With infrastructure, we are going from analog infrastructure that has gotten trillions of dollars of investment to a digitized, electrified infrastructure. So that's going to require different solutions for orchestration, for financing, for optimization. And so all of these things require new software, new technologies, new enablement tools. And we think the last kind of chapter of climate investing was the big heavy CapEx stuff like solar panels, wind farms, et cetera. And the next chapter will be the asset light layer that enables it to really gain traction and really gain more optimizations within the ecosystems that we're talking about. So within all of these areas, we see tons of different areas to optimize and improve. And that's what we love. I've been investing in the venture space for a long time. And these days, when you pull on a thread in fintech, you see 80 companies going after the same idea. When you pull on a thread in healthcare investing, you see 80 companies going after the same idea. With climate, with energy, with infrastructure, it's all greenfield. It's all, white space because there just hasn't been that generation of capital and that generation of founders going after ideas. And that's why I love the space and why I decided to go all in for my career in this area of focus.
Yeah, I'd love for you to walk us through some of the companies that have come out of Montauk Climate, or, I know that this is a relatively recent kind of like launched initiative, but who are the companies that you're working with? What kind of work are they doing? And where can people go to find out more about them, specifically with your venture, but then also the companies that you're working with and standing up?
Yeah, awesome. The two companies that are related but were precursors to Montauk Climate, one is Haven Energy. Haven Energy raised an A round recently. They're helping homeowners add battery storage to their house. The second business is called Electron X, which is designed to be a trading exchange for electricity futures and electricity derivatives. So that business is not live yet, but has raised capital and has a great management team in place. And is one of those ideas that I think could have really tremendous impact on the industry at large. An idea that we're working to launch this summer is a business called Adaptive Insurance, which would be the first one formally under the Montauk Climate umbrella. So with Adaptive Insurance, we have great co-founders, Mike, our CEO, and Arik, our CTO at Adaptive Insurance. We're two of the first 10 employees at Hippo Insurance, and we're building today a parametric insurance platform that helps business owners be prepared for climate change. So climate adaptability, climate solutions for a world that is going through climate change is something that we spend a lot of time as a theme of Montauk Climate talking about. We think that business owners and consumers need to be better prepared, which means they need to have bespoke insurance solutions for that. And so the first product on the platform will actually be a power outage insurance. So if you're a business owner, if you're a restaurant and you lose power, you can now have an insurance policy that'll cover that. And so we talk a lot about how insurance owners, if you lose power, you're going to lose revenue, but you still have to pay your payroll. You're going to have spoilage, and general liability coverage doesn't cover power outages like this. And so we think there are a number of bespoke kind of custom built products that fit the parametric insurance mold that will do really well, that we want to take to market with Adaptive Insurance. Beyond that, we're working on a number of ideas. The second business that we're kind of progressing is a business that helps data centers manage their energy footprint and procurement better. So data centers are some of the largest consumers of electricity on the planet, yet they're not operated by folks who know the power markets and know electricity well. Those are super confusing bills from utilities that are constantly changing their billing structure. We think software can be a powerful tool to help you better analyze, audit, and predict your energy footprint. And so we're excited to launch that business. We're working on businesses related to weather. We're working on businesses related to various things that are happening within the energy landscape. So it's fun. It's a broad footprint of ideas, and we're lucky that we're now starting to attract some great talent to help us run these ideas. And I'm definitely excited about launching these businesses and getting these off the ground.
Before we let you go, I want to ask you, you've had some bucket list moments. You got to ring the bell, New York Stock Exchange, right? Now you're in this world, which is incredibly, socially impactful in terms of energy and what you can do. At the end of the day, when, let's say, you look back, what is it that to you is going to define success for Montauk Climate?
With Montauk Climate, our goal is to build the preeminent platform for climate-related ideas end to end of a business lifecycle. So we're obviously starting with helping companies and create companies at the earliest stages of germination of the idea. But over time, we would like to have solutions and capital and people that can help these businesses across the entire ecosystem. And what I would love the world to recognize that Montauk Climate was able to do was help catalyze more people coming into the climate space, because I think the biggest bottleneck to innovation, to impact within climate is just great entrepreneurs, great operators who know how to build and scale companies. So if we can help catalyze that movement by having solutions for companies at every stage, then I feel like we'll have built a successful business with Montauk Climate.
For sure. Well, Philip, thank you so much for your time and sharing all the exciting things that you're doing at Montauk Climate. We'll leave links to Montauk Climate's website, as well as Philip's LinkedIn profile in the show notes if you want to go and check out more there, learn more about what they're doing, or connect with Philip personally. Thanks for listening to another episode of Innovate or Die. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.